Hi, I'm Dan,
Hi, I'm Ryan.
and this is Bourbonsauced. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Also known as a Lady in the Bourbon on Instagram.
I think it's huckberry.
No, so it actually, like, the real thing is...
Our little niche is that we just like to drink bourbon and bullshit, you know? That's why the big BS in our logo is we just like
There
to
it
bullshit.
is. Bourbon and bullshit.
Welcome back to another episode here. We're going to talk about closures for bottles, and there are a variety of them, which we've tried to line up what we've got here so you guys can kind of get an idea. So, do you know why they started using corks or closures at all?
So the whole point was to be able to reliably store liquids in bottles and keep a tight seal on it so that it would not
Evaporate. Yeah.
diminish the aroma, cut the flavor, different things. Same thing with carbonation.
I imagine ancient Egyptians cutting someone's finger off and just using that as their...
Yeah, but as the finger decomposes...
Well, I mean, if they drink the wine fast enough, maybe they don't have to worry about that, but I feel like they just left them open storage.
So would you call that finger wine?
Could be. Could be like the whole, you know why.
Because I saw somewhere where like they would take the pots and then they would take like wood corks that they would shape,
Right.
pack down into it, and then they would cover it in like some kind of
Like a cheesecloth looking thing.
yeah, and then build it upon that on
Mhm.
and just keep going and going.
Yeah, because it was like before they even had wax was an invention. So it's kind of interesting. Ooh, that's something we didn't put up here also was like makers or any of the others that use wax for sealing, but you guys already know that kind of closure. But so one of the most unique ones that we don't typically see out there is this spring cap, which it's an interesting closure, and I think you can only find it on certain secondary markets these days.
Yeah, as far as bourbon and whiskeys go, you can still find it on some beers, certain ciders, and then I don't remember what that is that you got.
That's just
Is that a mead?
it is a mead.
Yeah, so it's on a mead. So stuff
Yeah.
like that, they'll occasionally do those spring tops.
Yeah, it's very strange that they I mean, I guess back then it was useful and up until about the 60s, but
Something like that, yeah.
it was pretty good seal to keep it from evaporating or spilling. And it was kind of cheap to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because you could reuse these closures
Right.
oftentimes and they lasted because it's, you know, this one I think is porcelain and metal with the cork, the rubber gasket that's on it.
Yep.
But I think one of the problems that they had with these were that it would be too tight of a seal if it was done too long.
Yeah.
Like if you just left it in storage and then you go to open it and it was just kind of like, "Ah,"
Yeah.
and then you like break it or break the glass.
Totally can see that happening.
I could see myself doing that and getting so frustrated you just smash the top off
Right.
because you're like, I want what's in this vessel. Give me what's in this vessel right now. But
I can see that. I can see that. Just crack the head and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Total Viking. That I'd be one of those berserkers. I think back in
Yes.
the day. Speaking of mead,
Mm-hmm.
but what are you drinking over there, by the way?
So I decided to go with a tried and true favorite, and I went with Bighorn Bourbon, Willie's
Wow.
Distillery,
And that one uses what kind of? It was just a
synthetic.
synthetic closure.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is I picked a Penelope, which is also a synthetic closure.
A lot of them have gone to those.
It's popular. It seems to be all the rage right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think because you don't have to worry about the biggest pro I can think of is the deterioration factor, right?
Uh-huh.
Other than that, I see no other real benefit, because wouldn't you worry about like storage for long term and it starts to like have a chemically effect?
Maybe.
But I mean, what other? I mean, we got other stuff up here, right? So other than spring enclosure, which basically stopped in the '60s for whatever unknown real reason, other than the fact that they kind of started progressing to corks.
So the next big one up was the screw caps.
Oh, that's right, screw caps.
And that was like 1890s is when they started using them, but they didn't get like widespread till the 70s, which basically kind of replaced the spring top.
Yeah.
Because they were a lot easier to use, a lot cheaper. People say they lack the romance and elegance of the cork.
Because, I mean, think about it. When we open up one and I see it's a screw top, I get all upset. I'm like, oh, it's a screw top.
Mm-hmm.
You know, versus that cork pop that you get. Everyone's always looking for that cork pop when you open up a bottle, of, especially at Fresh Crack Fridays or, what everyone else is doing these days.
And they say one of the biggest downsides to the screw top is the lack of its longevity.
Why?
So
what do you mean?
So they have at the top of most of the screw tops, like for instance, you buy a pop or anything, right? When you take that screw top off, if you notice in the top, there's usually a rubber or plastic seal of some kind at the very top.
Oh, I never paid attention to that.
So, like over time, it kind of deteriorates, it shrinks, and it starts allowing vapors and other things to escape.
I could see that being a thing for sure.
Yeah.
I never really paid attention except for. I'm trying to think now.
Over time, it'll deteriorate that thin plastic.
Because it's like when you, like on pop bottles with that metal top that you can pop off. You usually see those metal bottle caps with that same kind of seal. So I never really thought to look on the inside of these screw tops to see the same mechanism, if you want to call it that. But that's interesting.
Did you know, a fun fact, that over 50% of the world's cork wood is manufactured in Portugal?
In a town called Cork?
I don't know if it's in a town called
That'd be
Cork.
funny.
I know there's a town in Ireland called Cork.
Yeah, I know that, but that'd be kind of funny if there was a town in Portugal also named Cork.
That would be kind of funny.
And then they're like...
But I learned that 50% of the world's cork is produced in Portugal.
So even like cork boards.
Yeah. Because they have one of the larger populations of cork trees, which is a oak. It's cork oak.
Well, look at that. You learned something new. I think that's another advantage for that screw caps is being made out of metal. You don't have to worry about it decomping.
No, the problem is that
it's just the gasket that
it's the
deteriorates inside. But yeah, interesting. I never paid attention to the inside.
Yep.
I just assumed because of this threading that each one of those threads as it goes down was creating a better seal, and I didn't realize that there's actually a gasket fitted in the top.
2 liter of Coke or anything. If you look, they've got that gasket in the top.
Never paid attention.
Because it never, I don't care how tight you twist it, without that gasket, kind of like the valve covers on a car. Without that seal, if over time something's coming out of there.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I really never paid attention to that. There are different kinds of corks also, which I had no idea that they did vary. I thought they were all just kind of compressed.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that some of them had like resin that held it all together. I just figured it was heat, and they kind of just like bonded it by heat and pressure. I could see why some that use that resin would have a real weird chemically taste, or potentially a weird chemically taste to them.
Yeah, I could see that.
Whereas the ones that don't have the chemical used for adhesion for that cork, I would think would have a bigger chance of deterioration. But I don't know.
I could see something like that. I know, like with the synthetics, you don't really need to necessarily turn the bottle
Yeah.
because there's really nothing to, I mean,
You ain't got to wet nothing.
you're not really wetting the cork.
But I also saw somewhere where one of the disadvantages of the cork is because of the higher proofed bourbons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They are more prone to deteriorating the cork quicker because of that higher ethanol level, which then like accelerates the breaking down or decomp of the cork material. Which I could see why some of these companies would like, with the higher proofing, go to the synthetic or a screw top or some other variation, so they don't have to worry about that. Because sometimes these people, they'll buy it and it just sits on their shelf for hell. I mean,
a long time. Some of them.
My dad has a bottle of Jim Beam, I think, somewhere that is like 45, 50 years old in the house, and I think that one's a screw top.
Yeah,
from way back.
So I didn't know that until I watched one of those shows of how it's done.
Oh, yeah, how it's made? Yeah.
How it's made. That the corks are actually, obviously, they're smaller than the diameter of the throat of the bottle.
Uh-huh.
And they're basically punched in at a very high speed to where it more or less kind of jams them in place. And then it gives them time to fully expand inside the neck.
I feel like that sounds so sexual, and I'm trying my hardest.
I bet you are.
Because that one's like a softball pitch.
Yeah, it kind of was. It kind of was.
I just want to smash it like a cork into a bottle. So that basically makes it watertight, gas tight. So it creates like a hermetically sealing at that point.
It's got that vacuum suction.
Yeah, love that. love all that. So if it's a loose cork, then like when we go to open some of them you can tell like, oh man, that was a real tight seal. Like the one Magnus that I opened the one day, that was probably one of the hardest cork pulls I've had in a while. Like that thing was in there, and I thought I was gonna like rip the top of the cork off.
Right.
We've had like the 1792. The top of that one, the gluing didn't hold, and so like went to open that, and it's like, whoop, oh shit, half the cork's in the bottle. So I mean that's one of those downfalls, I guess.
And if you notice, like these corks are essentially reusable, and they're not as a tight fit as like a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Because they typically you pour a glass of bourbon or whiskey and you recork it, put it back on the shelf.
Right.
Right. Whereas a bottle of wine, a lot of times you're talking what?
Four glasses?
About 4 to 5 glasses.
Depending on how you pour.
Right. So the premise there is that wine, once it's open, it's going to be consumed rather quickly. Yeah. So the cork's in there to keep it airtight till you pop it, and then it's not really supposed to be recorked.
It's kind of like Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop.
Right. You can't have just one, right?
Yeah.
Which is why they make all these different things to recork your wine.
Yeah.
Because the cork is not really reusable, whereas these are designed to be able to just go back into the bottles.
Right. And on that, it's interesting because cork is expensive. It's not necessarily a cheap material for people that are out there that are deciding that you're going to create your own bourbon at some point, and you're thinking of like what's more cost effective. Natural cork's not cost effective at all. And so I think that's another thing for like some of these smaller, well, I say smaller, but new upcoming distilleries are using more of that synthetic style because of cost.
Well, so you have cost, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, like anything, the cork over time, the longevity, it begins to shrink.
Yeah.
No matter how much you re-wet it, it just over time it begins to shrink and, kind of becomes useless. It loses its elasticity, I guess you would say.
as we all age and we lose our elasticity, sometimes that happens to the best of us. You just have to make sure you soak your cork as much as you can to try and prevent.
And then
prevent
sometimes
that.
the cork can taint over time as it deteriorates. It can deteriorate
All these
the
words,
bourbon.
I'm just trying to behave here, y'all. This is so difficult.
And it's funny because every time I know I'm about to cue up a word, I'm just like, let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, and then that problem with that when it does start to taint is like I was saying before, is it like changes the flavor of the drink that it resides in. Or like, have you ever like opened one and you end up with those little tiny floaties in there from the cork?
Yeah, because it dries out and it breaks off.
Yeah. That's the worst because then you're just like chewing on cork basically. So then after that, they decided they wanted to do this plastic molding or injected synthetic, whatever people want to call that. You pick a word. That's the word you're going to use, whether it's a plastic one, a polymer one, a extruded something, not cork. That's basically what.
Yeah, but doesn't the the extrusion process create like a viscous foamed plastic mass,
I mean, yeah, it can.
which is then pressed through a nozzle,
Yeah, you gotta squeeze it through that tight nozzle,
and then the plugs are cut off?
God, Lorena Bobbitt all over this place. Just squeezing things and cutting them off. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll just,
But then they have something crazy like a co-extrusion?
Yeah.
Is that where like you double?
I don't know.
It's,
Could be like a DP action, It
uses a big word.
does use a big word, doesn't it?
What is it? Homogeneous?
Homogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous is the way you say it. Some people say homogeneous, which I'm like.
I might have said homogeneous had I not heard you say the word once before.
Yeah, homogeneous. Cheese. Homogeneous cheese.
So what is that?
I forget what that's called. Homogeneous. Like, I think that's just like pressing of different things. I'm no fucking scientist. The fuck? I'm not Bill Nye the Science Guy over here. He's not even a real scientist. Did you know that?
I kind of figured.
I always thought he was a real scientist.
I just figured he was some guy that just happened to.
Kind of like I thought Mr. Wizard was also. I think Mr. Wizard actually is a scientist, and Bill Nye is not. But there are different kinds of ones, and this is one that's unique. And we've never seen another one like this one.
And then the rest of the Bower Hills are not like this. It's only this one that I know of is the special edition number 1. And it's
all gone.
It's a
flanged.
It's flanged.
I've seen that on like wine.
Rubber.
Like
yeah, but it's a rubber flanged.
I think box wine or something. I've seen that same style flanged cork on. I don't remember seeing it on any other bourbon bottles ever.
I've not.
Which is unique. And the fact that it's got like that decanter style.
Yeah, it's got the glass top.
Which is unique. It's not completely glass like a normal decanter.
Right.
But
it has that rubber flange.
Yeah, it's decorative. I like it. It's cool. And then they've got decorative corks out there, which, I mean, everyone knows Blanton's with the dang horse on it. But you've got Whistle Pig that has their unique ones on the top. You've got this St. Cloud, which has got this cool looking. That one reminds me of a hood ornament. Von Payne, and it has the gargoyle on the top. That's
the mouth being the spout.
Right. It's an actual pouring top, but it is kind of unique because you have normal stoppers that we've got lined up here, and then we've got ones that we don't have, like that one that's a pouring stopper, which
we forgot about.
Yeah, but I'm kind of curious why you would ever want that as a permanent fixture It just doesn't make sense because you're constantly going to seep out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not high proof, so I guess they're not too worried about it escaping from the bottle.
Oh, and then the Doc Holliday has the decorative 6-round cylinder.
That's true. That one does. And then you have normal, just plain glass stoppers, which are in what are those fancy containers called?
The decanters.
Yes, decanters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We also have our little Green Beret Foundation cups. Supporting that. So if people are curious on where they can maybe make a donation, Green Beret Foundation is always looking for some money to be donated and help them out, help their families out. So can you think of reasons why you would pick one of these over the other?
I mean, I think we kind of explained most of that. Honestly, our bottles don't really survive long enough for it to matter.
If you had to pick one that you knew was going to survive an apocalypse, and somebody someday is going to come across it and be like, ooh, I wonder if this bourbon's any good in here still.
Synthetic.
You would go with synthetic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because unless you're going to basically make sure the bottle's laid on its side or upside down for the rest of its natural life till somebody discovers it, then the cork's not going to be worth squat.
I think I would go with the screw top. Because I know for sure it's on there. I think that the use of different corks is important. And it kind of adds to the allure of certain bottles.
I would agree with that.
And
you kind of got to, you've got to experiment, which is why over time things have progressed to different style of corks.
Yeah.
And then you get all the decorative ones that are coming out more and more.
Yeah, I do like when they have a decorative top, but sometimes they're a pain in the ass to get open.
Yeah.
Like this one, it can help you because of the way it's angled. You can get a decent purchase.
Yeah.
But some of them, it's kind of like
in
awkward
the way.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like some of the whistle pigs are just kind of like real knobby looking, like a doorknob kind of like, but not a doorknob you want to grab a hold of, but like a mangled piece of metal that you're like, I probably shouldn't touch this.
Right.
But they look cool. Probably wouldn't be something that I'd want to open frequently because it'll chew up your hand.
Oh yeah, like the Whistle Pig 10 Commandment. That's a massive.
That one's huge.
Yeah.
That's a big knobby one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a knobby girl. Well, this is why we now have different types of corks. And so you can make sure that your drink can stay where it's supposed to be in the vessel that it arrives in and not somewhere else. Like the clouds. Because it evaporates and ends up in the clouds. Plus the other thing is you don't want it to oxidate anymore.
Nope.
And that's another reason why they started using the corks is the oxidation process. It kind of slows that down.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want that, because then your drink is going to, whatever's in there is going to taste funky.
Uh-huh.
But if you guys want to see more of these types of educational videos, let us know. If you don't, and you want us to go back to our rambling and our babbling of random topics, let us know that too. But we have a few more things up our sleeve that we need to uncork. So stay tuned for more episodes. Until next time, drink your favorite drink. Hopefully it's bourbon. And get sauced.
Cheers.